I'm 23 years old, and sometimes I wonder if life was wasted on me.
Definitely want to begin, and I asked the Russo brothers this question too, so Tom, no pressure here, but there's a bit of a bromance that you guys have now over the course of several films. Want to take stock at what that bromance level is right now. If level 1 is we're friends, and level 10 is we're lifelong collaborators, where are we at right now? What level of bromance?
Probably about 11. I think I will continue to work with the Russos for as long as they'll have me. I have never worked with people where we've had so much fun on screen and off screen. They're so kind and welcoming to new people, to people they've worked with in the past. They're both immensely talented, and I would jump at any opportunity to work with the both of them again.
Ciara, knowing that your co-star and the directors have this sort of relationship that's gone on for several films, is that sort of more comforting, that familiarity coming into a situation like that for you?
I found it intimidating.
Oh, yeah.
I found it so scary because I'm like, oh, shit. Sorry, I was like, they already know each other. They're friends. Now I got to come in here and try. But no, they were so welcoming and so warm, and it was the opposite of all of my anxiety spirals and fears, and it really was a wonderful experience.
That's awesome. For the both of you, and I'll begin with you, Ciara, you have to play characters at different eras in their lives, which has got to be really challenging. For you as performers, what was the most rewarding era of this person's life that you played? And was it also the most challenging?
It actually was. For me, the most rewarding era or chapter of this story was Dope Life, because I feel like we had to go to some really, really extreme places, some really dark places mentally to tell the story in the best way possible. And so when you sort of shred yourself in that way and give so much of yourself to the character, you want it to pay off. And I do feel really proud of the work that we did in this movie. Tom, is absolutely exceptional. And, his passion and care and strength is so clear in this as well.
What about for you, Tom?
It's an interesting question. I think if you look back at the workload, it would have to be Dope Life. But I think the stuff that we did at the beginning of the film that sets up the love story and sets up this character who is very, very capable of making a poor decision, for me, I think is some of my best work, because it had to be very nuanced. It had to be very subtle. We didn't want to make it obvious that this kid was on a path that not many people would survive on. So for me, I actually found that portion of the film much more difficult to bring to life. Especially coming off of the back of doing Dope Life, where we were on set and we were pushing ourselves so much and crying and screaming and vomiting, to all of a sudden just doing a scene about two people falling in love. I felt really stressed because I was like, I'm not working as hard, so I can't be doing as good a job. So getting over that insecurity that, being exhausted doesn't equate to being a good actor. So I found that section very rewarding when I watched it back.
I think it's interesting. A lot of people are going to watch this film. Tom, they're going to be Spider-Man fans or Marvel fans, and they're going to come to this film because of that. And I think there are so many things that people can take away from this film. For me, the PTSD parts of this really resonated. I have family that went through the military and had to deal with some of that. And so, what do you hope people that are coming in for those reasons take away from this film?
I hope that they realize that they're not alone. I hope this film can help them convey to people that don't understand their struggles. Ciara has been saying in interviews that the battle of PTSD and substance abuse is one that's mostly fought in the shadows by yourself. So I hope this film can really help people feel more comfortable about expressing their feelings and sharing what they're going through, and also making people like myself who didn't know much about this problem more sympathetic and more open-minded to the awful problem that is substance abuse and PTSD.
When you make a movie like this, what you really hope people take away from it is a sense of connection. And I hope that we are able to further the conversation that's been started from, activists in films before us, just to create a new space for us to speak about it with our family members and our loved ones and educate ourselves on the pain that people go through and what's currently available to people battling addiction, especially our veterans coming home from war. And hopefully we can encourage some growth in those areas of our lives as well.
You know, the model of movie making is rapidly evolving. This film is going to be in theaters. It's also going to be available to watch at home. You know, moving forward with the projects that you both decide to choose, how much is that a factor? Like when you decide to do a role, about whether it's going to premiere on TV first or if it's going to be in theaters first, how important has that decision now become in your lives?
For me personally, when I'm thinking about which project I want to do next, it very rarely comes down to like, where is this going to end up? And is more so, what story are we telling? How are we telling it? And who am I telling it with? You know, ultimately, I want to be working on projects that continue to spark that passion inside of me and in the people that I'm making the movie with. Because I think that's when you really get that magic.
I think, you know, the industry is definitely changing. Streaming services are becoming more prominent. I think you have to remind yourself that no matter where the film starts, it always ends up on telly. Every film has a life on television. So you're just kind of skipping a few steps. I think there are certain films that warrant being shown on the big screen, and certain films that it's not necessary. You know, I do think that cinema is best experienced in a big seat with a big screen and a box of popcorn. But, you know, the industry is changing and we're all going to have to figure out how to adapt to it. But no, I don't think where the film is being shown really has an effect on my decision as to whether I'll make it or not.
Sometimes I feel like I've already seen everything that's going to happen.
Let me just dive right in. My first question, you know, you direct, the last movie that you co-direct together is the highest grossing movie of all time. So I imagine when you're choosing a follow-up film to direct together, the sky's the limit, really. So two-part question, but did you feel pressure in selecting what that project was going to be? And then why did it become Cherry?
We didn't feel any pressure. And I think part of what helped us be successful in that run we had with Marvel was closing off the outside world a bit, you know, the noise from the outside world, and just making choices that made us creatively satisfied. And we made movies that we wanted to see. It's good that there's two of us. It really helps us ground each other and have a dialogue that sort of excludes external noise. We picked this because the opioid crisis has touched us deeply, very personally. This book is about our hometown, written by Nico Walker, who grew up in our hometown in the same neighborhoods we grew up in. He and I worked at the same restaurant about 10 years apart from each other. So, and it really speaks to the existential crisis that a lot of that city and parts of the industrial Midwest find themselves in, and why opioids have taken such hold there. We have friends and family who are struggling with their sobriety, others who have died from addiction. So it just was a very personal, very important issue for us.
You know, I do want to mention, you do have a bit of a bromance going with Tom Holland. This is several films you've worked on now with him. If we were to take stock of that bromance level right now, level 1 being like we're just friends, level 10 being like this is a lifelong collaborator, where would you feel like your bromance level with Mr. Holland is at this point in time?
Probably 11. Yeah. So we adore Tom. I mean, he is among the most talented people we've ever encountered. He's also one of the most genuine and hardworking and kind people we've ever encountered. So yeah, I mean, we can't do enough with Tom. You know, I'm sure we'll be working with him throughout our careers. And look, he was incredibly important to this movie. I mean, this was a hard movie. This is a hard movie. You know, it's about difficult things. And Tom, there's not a lot of actors that are as charismatic and fun to watch as Tom. And it's like, if you're going to go on a journey, if you're going to go on a difficult journey, you want him to be your guide. And he, you know, what he brought to this movie, we can't overstate. And we're really grateful for our collaboration with him.
You know, the future of the movie landscape is really interesting right now. You know, this film in particular, it's going to be in theaters for a couple of weeks, and then it's going to be available to watch at home. Lots of windows are changing and whatnot while we've been through this pandemic. And as you move forward, do you think about these kinds of things and the kinds of projects that you're taking on, considering that the way people consume content is just evolving at a rapid pace right now?
100%. I mean, I think that there's incredible value in what's happening. I mean, I think we really have to understand like how it's opening things up. And there was a period there where it's very anemic in theatrical business where, you know, movies like this just weren't being seen because people didn't, you know, there's a barrier of entry there. They got to pay $20 to go to the theater, $50 for the babysitter, $100 for dinner. It's a big experience. It's a big ask of them. Here's the other thing that's really important too. There's an enormous international audience that is of a different socioeconomic status than most Americans, where the theater is something that is not attainable for them. And, you know, having digital distribution allows them to view stories, lower barrier of entry for them. And that's incredibly important. That's about the democratization of storytelling. I also think that, you know, theatrical space was a risk-averse space, and diversity was not priority in theatrical movies for years. And I think if you look at the old guard and, you know, what's happening now in the digital space is that, one, there's more content, two, there's a priority now for diversity, and three, it's it affords greater opportunity, I think, for riskier content than theatrical does. I think you'll see moving forward, theatrical is going to be almost exclusively eventized content.
I agree. Speaking of event-sized content, I'm sure everybody's in your ear about returning at some point to a superhero movie universe. My question about that would be, would you ever consider doing what your buddy James Gunn did and go do a big DC blockbuster?
Look, Joe and I love filmmaking on every scale. You know, we've made movies for as little money as you could possibly make movies for. We've made movies for as much money as you could possibly make movies for. And we love everything in between. I mean, we will someday for sure do a movie in that genre again, probably in the not too distant future. Who it's with, and, you know, we're not able to say at this point. But yeah, we like challenging ourselves. We like finding new frontiers. So it's a surprise to us where we're going, and hopefully it'll be a surprise to audiences as well.
Can you look back to when you met the one you loved the most? You remember exactly how it was?